A couple of years ago, Adam and Belle settled in a neighborhood in their home state, an hour from their hometown. Part of what attracted them to this house was a beautiful white oak tree that grew in the front yard, estimated to be about 100 years old. The tree is a fixture in the neighborhood. And to their neighbor, 3 houses down, it was something special. This neighbor, Karen, was about 10 or so years than they are and is a die-hard environmentalist. There's nothing wrong with this. But this neighbor took hugging trees to a whole new level. Her first sentence to Adam and Belle a few days after they moved in was, "You're going to take good care of Stanley, right?" "Stanley?" Adam asked, confused. "The tree. That's its name." "Oh," Belle said, laughing nervously. "I wasn't aware it had a name." "Well, it does, and I hope you won't make sure nothing happens to it," Karen said in a somewhat threatening tone. Belle and Adam are former Army and police respectively, so they weren't intimidated, but they realized this neighbor might be nuttier than a squirrel's pantry, according to Belle. Later, they were talking to a different neighbor about Karen, and the neighbor just rolled her eyes and said Karen's harmless, just squawks when someone accidentally drops their trash on the sidewalk or something like that. It became something of a joke between Adam and Belle to say hi to Stanley. Fast forward to last spring. While the other trees in the neighborhood sprouted leaves, Stanley remained barren. Adam and Belle hired a respected arborist, coming to see what was wrong and to hopefully fix the tree. Unfortunately, according to him, the tree was dead. So Stanley had to be cut down. Belle and Adam alerted their neighbors and assured everyone that they would plant a new white oak tree in its place. They also checked with the county and the city to make sure they didn't have to file paperwork, got a report from the arborist, and hired a company to cut down the tree. Basically, dot their I's and cross their T's. They learned from their many years at their careers to document. Stanley is cut down and the stump dug up to make room for the new white oak coming. That night, Adam and Belle are watching TV when Belle happens to look outside. There's a figure lying on the spot where the tree stood, but it's too dark to make out who it is. Adam gets a flashlight and his phone and heads out. Lying on the spot, sobbing profusely, is Karen. Adam, uncomfortable, asks if something is wrong. She tells him to go away. He's not in the mood for confrontation, just asks her to leave. She says, "I'll stay as long as I need to grieve." Worried he's dealing with crazy, Adam calls the non-emergency number, and at this, Karen just scurries off. Karen starts acting crazy. She wears all black for several days, has a large picture of the tree in her front window, and would glare at Adam and Belle as they worked in the yard. She doesn't do anything illegal, but Adam and Belle invest in a security system with several cameras just in case. Belle has something of a green thumb and decided to plant a vegetable garden. One summer day, she and Adam returned from running several errands only to find the vegetable garden gone. All that was left was the upturned dirt. Adam and Belle check the security footage. To their utter shock, they see Karen uprooting their vegetables, potting them, and moving them to her house. They call the police and they head over to Karen's house. There was Karen, planting the stolen vegetables in her backyard. When confronted, she says they didn't take care of Stanley, so I'm taking care of them. You read that right, folks. She felt she was entitled to them because of something that happened out of Adam and Belle's control. Adam and Belle give the officer, "You don't get paid enough for this," looks before the officer says, "Ma'am, you did steal from them. They just want their plants back. Otherwise, they will press charges." At this, Karen becomes irate, and it's not until she's reminded that the officer has a body camera and that assaulting him would be a dumb idea that she agrees to give back the plants. She glares at Adam and Belle as they take the plants back. They get a police report and add it to their paperwork. Not long afterwards, Belle and Adam get court summons. Yep. Karen had decided to sue them for emotional and property damages. All for cutting down the tree. Their lawyer laughed as he looked at the letter, saying, "There's no way this would fly before a judge, especially with all the evidence." He sent Karen's lawyer a letter saying as much, saying that if she did go ahead with this suit, that he'll go after them for court, lawyer fees for wasting everyone's time. No dice. Karen dug in her heels and a court date was set. The judge let Karen and her lawyer argue for close to an hour about what Adam and Belle had done to her. How Stanley was an innocent soul who deserved its chance to live, that they don't deserve the chance to even care for a child. All the time, the judge was looking like she didn't know whether to laugh or roll her eyes. But she let Karen dig her own grave. When Karen and her lawyer finish, the judge turns to Adam, Belle, and their lawyer, asking if they had a counterargument. They present the paperwork from the arborist, the city county, the video of her stealing their vegetable plants, the police report. Everything. The judge looks over everything before looking at Karen and her lawyer. I'll keep this brief. I've been a judge for close to 30 years and have seen many cases brought to the bench. And this has to be the most ridiculous case I've ever heard in my career. She ruled in Belle and Adam's favor, and Karen had to pay court and lawyer fees. After chewing Karen out for wasting everyone's time, Karen put her house up for sale and it hasn't been seen much in the neighborhood. Next spring, after the soil has a chance heal from the nutrients Stanley sapped up, Adam and Belle plan to plant the new white oak tree. They're thinking of naming it Karen. I had an encounter today that I just have to share with this community. So I was in a packed tram minding my own business when I noticed an entitled mother with her 3 kids in the same wagon. The scene was already set for a typical entitled parent story, but little did I know how much it would escalate. For reference, there are 2 types of trams where I live. The old type with small doors and high stairs where wheelchairs and strollers are not allowed, and the new ones, which are accessible. You guessed it, the entitled mom made it onto the old tram I was on, even though the next accessible tram was just 5 minutes away according to the screen. Her kids were already whining and extremely unruly. The 4 of them, along with their huge stroller, occupied a significant part of the tram. It was 6 p.m. peak commuting time, so the tram was packed with people returning home from work. The situation was ripe for more entitled behavior, and oh, did it deliver? The tram stops, and it's finally time for the crotch goblin farm to exit. But just when I thought the worst was over, something happens. One of the brats had a hard-shell backpack which got stuck in the old, forcefully closing door. The conductor had to get out to try and free the trolley, and understandably, she was pretty angry about the situation. What blew my mind was the entitled mom's reaction. Instead of apologizing or taking responsibility, she started crying out, I'm a mother. I have 3 little children. As if that somehow exempted her from being responsible for any damage caused to the tram. It was baffling how she played the mother card instead of acknowledging the inconvenience and potential harm caused by her and her kids. The situation left many of us in the tram shaking our heads in disbelief. Finally, the trolley gets unstuck and the entitled mom and her horde leave. But that's not the end of it. The best, or should I say, worst, was yet to happen. The door was now broken, and the tram couldn't continue its journey. Thanks to the actions of this entitled parent, all of us had to disembark in the awful cold and rainy weather. There I was, forced to run through the rain just to make it to my appointment on time. The whole ordeal was frustrating, to say the least, and a perfect example of how on a dumb parent's entitlement can affect so many others. Besides, if her kid got stuck in the door instead, it could have turned out pretty ugly. This guy was a cretin, a disgusting, creepy man. He dug his own grave by saying the things that he said, but I was the one that pushed him into it. Not for the crazy things he said, though, but for what he did to me. At the time, I was working as a door, the doctor salesman. The day would start with everyone going to the office, then everyone getting into a car to drive to a different suburb. This was his first day, and he was assigned to my car. His vibe was off-putting from the start. Every word out of his mouth was about women and intimate things. He started commenting on all of the female employees that he literally only just met, how hot they are, which ones he banged, just gross stuff like that. I was glad none of them were in the car to hear it, but at the same time, I wished one of them was. Perhaps with a girl in the car, he would have behaved himself. He then asked me about the women that work in our other branch in another city, since I used to work there. I was not comfortable objectifying them in that way, so I said, I'm not going to answer that question. His reaction was disgraceful. I saw it in the review mirror. He whispered something to another guy, then did a hand gesture. I confirmed with the guy afterwards what the creep said. He said he asked me if you were gay. If you're wondering, the hand gesture was the stereotypical hand flip thing that people do to mock gay people. In case you're thinking that being called gay is what I got revenge for, don't. Being called gay isn't an issue for me, but on that topic, what was so screwed up about that accusation was that in this creep's mind, not wanting to objectify women means you're gay. To him, objectifying women was a requirement for heterosexuality. No, what I wanted revenge for was a bit more petty. At this point, we took a quick pit stop so we could get one last bite to eat before we reached the destination. He went to get his bag, which he left in my car boot. He went to the boot and tried to open the door. He met resistance. Now, for most people, what I call smart people, if they try to open a door but can't, they reach the conclusion that it's locked. This, however, was not a smart person. In his mind, the reason why the boot wasn't opening is because he wasn't pushing the button hard enough. So what did he do? He pushed the button harder. He pushed the button so hard that he pushed it up into the door. He broke my car boot. I was so pissed. For the rest of the day, if any one of us needed to get stuff from the boot, we had to go through the rear seats. He denied doing it, but I saw him do it. I was in the driver's seat, watching him in the review mirror try to open the boot. I saw the moment it happened. I saw the panic in his eyes. Whatever though, we had a job to do, so I decided to sort it out later. I dropped everyone off at their individual streets and we got to work. After stewing on it, I decided I was going to get him fired. I just needed to figure out how. Luckily, he would dig his own grave. At the end of the day, I drove around town to collect everyone. I picked up the creep last. He got in the car and he said, I just met the sexiest hottie with the biggest tits you've ever seen. Hell, what I would do to her. I started flirting with her. Then her mom came to the door. Turns out the girl was 14 though, so I couldn't sell it to her and the mom wasn't interested, but damn, I wish I could go back there. What in the absolute hell? The whole car went silent when he said that. I get that some people look older than they are. However, if you're a 30-year-old man and you're flirting with someone, the minute you find out they're 14, you shut the hell up. You've made a mistake. Now pretend like it never happened. Don't double down on it and repeat the story to people as if you've done nothing wrong. However, this is all I needed. It was like a gift from creepy heaven. This guy loaded the gun. All I had to do was pull the trigger. I told the boss the next morning. I told him everything. He said, I'll have a chat with him. This was not the reaction I was hoping for, so I said, no, you're going to fire him, or I'll walk. I really didn't want to play that card, but I was one of the top salesmen, and I knew he wouldn't want to risk losing me. I was bluffing, but luckily he didn't call me on it. He did fire him that morning. The moment he walked into the office, the boss pulled him aside. Shortly after that, the creep left and never came back. People asked what happened, so I let them know. The other guys in the car backed up my stories, and everyone agreed it was the right decision. The only guilt I felt was that it took him breaking my car to make me want him to get fired. He should have been fired for any one of the things he did. A better man would have reported him regardless of the car incident.